And we are just getting a little spinny wheel.
Spinny wheel.
We're starting. And yeah, we're live.
Woohoo! We're
Hey,
live.
we're live.
Yeah, we did it.
Hey!
How's everybody doing? Happy Friday. Thanks for-
Friday!
Thank you all in Facebook land for tuning into our first Friday live chat with the DA. We're going to try out this new thing because we like talking to each other and we like talking to you and we like sharing ideas and we feel like, it's something fun to try. So thanks for giving us a shot here. And Lori, Emily, and Nick, how y'all doing on this fine Friday afternoon?
Hello.
Excited
Good.
that it's Friday, you know?
It's nice and sunny out.
It's sunny. That's huge.
Yeah, it's beautiful
I've not
out.
seen the sun in years.
I stay in my cave.
In all honesty, I realized that yesterday I left the house for the first time in 3 days. It was like I went outside and I was like, oh, this is what the outside world looks like. You know, it's just.
Do you guys know that feeling of like putting on jeans? Because it's kind of foreign. It's
Yeah.
like every like, week and a half or so, I'll put on a pair of jeans and I'm like, wow.
This is so stiff.
What is this mystical fabric you speak of? Jeans.
Well, so not to
I gotta-
derail the conversation here, but Oh, Emily, I'm sorry. Did you have something you wanted to share?
Well, I wanted to kind of intro our convo by directing a question toward Nick.
All right.
And it is, what's the deal with Dungeons and Dragons?
I'm so glad you asked. And it continues to rant for 2 hours straight. I mean, it's I guess where to start is just like just overall, like we've been doing really well with our clubs lately, so we wanted to just kind of just have a chat about it.
Yeah, tell us like a little bit about like how the D&D club has been like gaining this like popularity pretty recently.
Yeah, basically, so our D&D club, we started, it was a year ago last month, which is great. We started out with like 1 or 2 groups, and since then, since we went online, we've managed to expand out. I think we're currently at 4 or 5, which is pretty good, and we're starting to get some more involvement. And I think the reason it's really catching on is because it's a really interesting activity to do together, because you're playing as a team. Essentially, you get to like do all kinds of crazy stuff. You get to cast spells, you get to fight tall ogres and giants, and of course the dragons, and do all this really cool stuff. And it's a good way to pass the time and meet some new people, and do cool stuff and get the treasure. Always get the treasure.
I have to say, just having been along for the ride. Now, I didn't grow up playing D&D. I've sat in on sessions, and I know the general idea. But having been sort of along for the ride with Nick developing our D&D club, I'm absolutely blown away by how into it these kids are. They're so passionate about this. It's our club members, like, in between sessions are coming up with their own storylines and drawing fan art of the monsters and like all this really cool stuff. And Nick, like, I think a huge part of that is you and the rest of our DMs, Nick, being on the same wavelength, passionate about the same things. But any thoughts as to why our club members are just so invested in this? I mean, they're not just coming to play; they're invested in this.
I mean, it's interesting because there are a couple of different like settings in the D&D world. There's like Forgotten Realms, there's Eberron, there's Greyhawk, like all these different worlds. There's a lot of variety that you can pick from. You can kind of choose the world that suits like your play style a little bit, which is really cool. But I think more than that, the way that D&D is written, it's so open. Like the designers like do what you want with it, so you can create whatever you want. So it's a really great way to like just kind of flex your creativity muscles. I think I was talking to another DM a few days ago. Like he made a what was it? It was like a McDonald's themed dungeon. So it was the McDungeon.
That is awesome.
I was just like, that is hilarious. So you can like do anything with it. So it's adaptable, and it's there's like a set of rules that always like set the stage, but you can always change it. So it's ever adapting, really. So I think that's why people really like it.
Yeah, I
So I want to back up just a quick little amount here. I want to like go way back, and like
we
for
taking it
those,
back?
For those who don't know, because like I'm one of those people who just I know what it is, but I still don't really know what it is. But like, so give us like the explain like I'm five.
Okay.
What is Dungeons and Dragons, and like what are the basic terminologies, DM, etc.
Sure. So essentially, when you're starting out, you will pick a character. People do this to different degrees, but generally, like, you pick a character that seems interesting to you. It could be like a really like sneaky thief, or a very wizened wizard,
Or a bard. I could be a bard.
100%, you can be a bard.
Guitar.
Yeah, guitars are very popular. There is a bagpipe option as well, if you want to get a little crazy with it. Oh yeah, 100%. But essentially, you pick a character. You meet other adventurers. And the way the game essentially works is your dungeon master, who's sort of like the referee and the storyteller. He will present you with a scenario, and he'll ask you what you want to do, and then you tell the dungeon master, I want to do X, X, and X, and the dungeon master goes, okay, here's what happens, and then the story kind of progresses from there. So it's sort of like this interactive story where, like, here's what happens, here's what I want to do, here's the result. And that's kind of where it goes from there.
So you're essentially like doing this really cool like land of pretend thing, but like with other people in like a controlled environment. Is that sort of like
sort of? I mean, like,
okay.
it's all set in like this like fantasy world essentially, where anything can be done. Like, there are still a couple rules here and there, because every game needs rules, of course. You can't just go like, a lot of people have some of the misconception, like, for the traditional D&D game, like, you can't go, I find a secret door and there's a ton of loot in there. Like, no, that's up to the dungeon master. You can ask and tell him what you want to do, and we'll see what happens. Some dungeon masters are really cool about like taking prompts from the player and adjusting things on the fly. Some might be a little bit more traditional in what they do, but it's this sort of give and take system. It's interesting.
I always like about D&D that the DM has a storyline written and has a general direction that he or she would like the players to follow, but what actually happens is the decision of the party, right? The players, and it's a group decision, and they work together to try and figure out the different puzzles and obstacles and battles that they have to face. So it's, while there is a storyline to follow, there's so much ownership on the part of the players to really let it unfold the way it unfolds. And, it's the dungeon master's job to kind of make sure they don't all die at the beginning of the game, because that's not very fun of a campaign, right? So, there's a little bit of,
adaptability.
Adaptability, exactly.
I actually have a great example of that. I ran a session yesterday night. Essentially, there were two primary quests that they had to choose from, and one of them is going to investigate, like, apparently this like haunted house that's set up on this place called Salt Marsh. Won't go too far into the details, but essentially they were talking to this old fisherman who apparently had wandered into the house. His name was Jimbo, and something wasn't quite right with Jimbo, because he was fishing without a fishing line, and he was just sitting there, just sort of like bringing in absolutely nothing. And really the main purpose of that interaction was just to get information on the house. That was it. But one of my players, he's a thief. He decided, he's like, can I sneakily like add a fishing line to his actual fishing pole? And I was like, sure. And I set the DC, which is the difficulty check, to be very high. He got the exact number. So this little halfling like did it like super fast. He literally just like ran a line of fishing line onto this fishing pole without the guy noticing at all, and then as a result he caught a monster which got pulled out of the lake he was fishing in. They had a small battle and they got some magic items out of it.
That's so awesome.
And then Jimbo was like screaming about like, you'll never take me back, and he ran off the dock. It was a whole thing.
Can I just interject a question?
Yeah.
Because I'm so curious. So like when he when he asked if he could, add this line or whatever, and then like, how do you determine as the DM like what you're gonna roll for, and then like where did the monster, whose brain did the monster come from?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and just to be clear, like the whole like adding the fishing line thing, like that I didn't have to do, but it seemed really fun,
Mhm.
and two, I wanted to see if he could pull it off, and he was like fist pumping and everything when he actually got to be done, because that's normally a very hard task. But to answer your question, Emily, so essentially what happened is, the player says, I want to do this thing. And then me as the dungeon master, I have to come up with a target number that he has to meet or exceed. And the mechanics of the game are written in a way so they actually give you a scale to use.
Mm.
In this particular case, like it goes from 0 to 30, and I put this at 25, which was very, very hard to do. Like 30 is like nigh impossible. But he got 25 exactly. I think he rolled very high on the die, and there's a bunch of other numbers that factor into it, but he got the number, and I was just like, all right, this is happening. So he got the fishing line on there, and I was like, that was super cool, but we need to have something else happen as a result. So at that point, I kind of know like the theme of the game. It's like a swampy sort of area. So I was like, all right, he's fishing, fish monster. Okay, here we go. And they pulled out like this. There's a creature called a Shogun, which is basically a fish man. And I was just like, great, we'll throw him in there. We'll have him have a little pouch. They'll have a little fight, and we took it from there.
Mm.
So like part of it's like knowing the mechanics of the game and knowing like what the theme is of the general setting, and there's a bunch of other stuff you can pull from.
Cool.
So you were able to like make those things up on the fly just based on like your knowledge of the game overall.
Yep. And part of that comes from experience. But it also helps that you read like a bazillion fantasy novels when you're 12.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you have that sitting in your back library that you could just like peruse through in the back of your head.
This
So
is
that also
why
helps.
Nick is the best DM ever, is because he's so good at thinking on
it.
the fly and coming up. You know, when the player's asked to do funny things that are like totally not related to the situation they're in, he'll come up with a little side quest of sorts on the fly to make it happen, which is awesome.
It's so weird because it's sort of like a comedy sketch in a little bit, like where like if a player wants to add something, like you very rarely want to say no. You want to see what happens and let them experiment a little bit. There are some things that you should not allow, but generally it's very open.
Mm.
So it's very cool.
So I have a question for you, Nick. You know, when
What's
the
up?
D&D club started, we started with I think 3 groups, right from basically from the beginning, and it was all in person. This was all pre-quarantine COVID stuff.
Correct.
And you know, I think for a lot of people out there listening, you know, questions they might have is, you know, this is a game that's normally played in person. Is it still as fun and engaging, even though we've moved on to a digital format? And what tech platforms are you using to make it more engaging? I'd love to have you talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So it is. I would say just as fun to do online. Obviously, it's a little bit more difficult because we've talked about this in the past, because like sometimes when you're online, that there's like that lack of social interaction because you're not physically in front of the other person. But our DMs do a really solid job of keeping everyone engaged with good storytelling, making sure that everyone gets a chance at the table to do something cool. One of the tenets of like D&D is like make sure everyone has a chance in the spotlight. You know, get a chance to like do something really awesome. We're always making sure the players have plenty of options. Some of our DMs also opt to use their individual programs. So I know Chase likes to use Roll20, so he still has visuals up on board. He still uses a grid pattern. For my personal style, I like to do theater of the mind. So it's all descriptive. It's all like in the imagination a little bit, because that gives me a little bit more flexibility with like what the players want to do. So in that case, I take in more input from the players and like let them give them a little bit more freedom. So we take all of that and we just continue to create this really cool experience.
Cool.
So those
really
kind of programs, they like help you roll dice or keep track of where you are in the game, or like all the above?
Yeah, some do a mixture of A and B. Like Roll20 is mostly for like creating dungeons and maps. And then D&D Beyond is like tracking your character stats, and that also rolls dice for you.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, so there's like a mix and match depending on the program.
I've definitely played with Roll20 a little bit. It's really cool. Like you can see where the other players are all on the same map, and the DM can move things around, and everybody sees it updated in real time. So it does give you this very sort of like group collaborative experience, which is awesome. But at the same time, I think this idea of theater of the mind is so awesome because one, you have, sound and ambiences that you can create to create the mood and the feeling, but also you're so good at describing things. A consensus of sort of the mental picture is painted, but every kid's going to kind of have their own little experience with that, which I think is kind of cool. Like they're all in the same storyline, but they all might be, kind of picturing it a slightly different way in the theater of the mind.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. So.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like reading a book. Like the author can describe something, but then someone else can have a mental picture, like you mentioned, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And a great example is like occasionally, like when a moment of inspiration strikes you, you can go off the page a little bit. Another D&D session I was running, everyone had worked together to create like this sort of like infiltration mission to recover a birthday cake that was stolen from an ogre. Long story. And everyone rolled really high, but the final kid got a natural 20, which is the highest thing you can get. And it basically, for our versions, I usually say like that's an automatic success in the game. Like usually it only applies to I'm going off the rails. But anyway, he rolled really high. And I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. So I got the Mission Impossible music and we just played that in the background while we described the upcoming scene. It was great.
That
is so awesome. In terms of visuals, do you like encourage players to like draw out their characters to kind of like show what they look like to the other players?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we encourage anyone who wants to like bring any creativity to the table, whether that's drawing a character. I know some of my other guys like to draw monsters from the monster manual. So if anyone wants to, like, they can also like I have it at the space. Like when I was DMing, I used to wear my wizard hat. So if you like to do like a little bit with costuming, like that's also welcome. Like some people really like to get their characters, want to draw.
Really cool.
If you want to just get a magic wand and have that there for your wizard spells, like it's all in good fun. Whatever you want to do.
Excellent.
So I've seen Stranger Things, which is I think set in the 80s, and they do some D&D in right between the kids, and then the whole like monster things coming to life and stuff. Yes, right. And I feel like that is like, I don't know, it's kind of like brought it to like the forefront, but like how is like a game from the 80s and like even earlier like still like relevant? Like how is it still popular? And like, I don't know, can you give us a little history?
Okay. So I don't remember the version of D&D that was played in the 80s. I want to say it was probably either 3.5 or 4. I can't remember which edition. I'm sure someone on the internet is gonna correct me. But one of the reasons that it's sort of made a resurgence is that 5th edition, which is the most recent edition, they did a really good job of overhauling it. Like it's not 100% completely different from the previous one, but they made it so it's way more accessible to new users. The rules all make sense. You don't have to like look at like 1,000,005 charts. They really did a good job at reformatting in such a way so players can more easily focus on their characters and the story, making it a little bit easier for the DM. So that's one reason. But another part of that is like the whole like true purpose of the game is to go on an adventure and have fun, and again, D&D is very unique in that, it can go anywhere. You want to hop on a magic carpet and go up to that flying city in the sky. You don't need to purchase an extra expansion set or a bunch of models to go do it. You just, all right, you hop on a carpet, you go, you describe the scene. You want to go dungeon delving into the Underdark and face off against rock monsters. Totally applies. It's that sense of like, you can go anywhere and do just about anything as long as you make the right dice roll. I think that continues to hold true.
The other thing I've noticed as well, just from chatting with parents, a lot of parents that enroll their kids in our D&D club played D&D when they were kids. So it's like this whole like intergenerational connection between parents and their kids, getting to share something really cool. Is the parents were into it and then maybe stopped playing for a little while, and then all of a sudden their kids are into it, and now it's like this amazing common ground for parents and kids to connect to each other on. By the way, I did look it up. 1974 was the original, and in the early 80s it was 3rd version.
Okay. that was close.
Just so we dot all the I's and cross all the T's.
Okay,
you know?
cool.
Well then, and to that end, it's like not just a game for kids, which is also pretty cool.
No.
No, certainly not.
I actually got my feet wet in dungeon mastering with our crew, which history lesson. So we started our D&D club last year, but I was actually gaming with a bunch of our instructors for I think 3 years prior to that. We'd come by every Friday night. We would hang out. We'd order, like tacos or burgers or something. You can't do D&D without some form of greasy food. It's it's a rule.
It's required.
And then once we'd share the bill, we'd split it up, and then we would basically wash our hands because no one wants a big grease palm on your character sheet. And we would just sit up and go play the game. We did that for 4 years. It was a lot of fun. And then we just started. I was like, we should do a club.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Having sat in on some of those early sessions, they were really, really cool, really intense. And my favorite memory of that was when we were in White Plains and the McDonald's across the street had the buy one 20-piece chicken nuggets, get a second one for free or something like that. So like everybody came in with 40 chicken nuggets. It was like 400 chicken nuggets at the DA.
Was that when Chicken McNachos was born?
Yeah, we were.
Right.
I think somebody ended up getting pizza, and then we put chicken nuggets on the pizza, and then we were trying to figure out like what else we could do with chicken McNuggets, so we came up with chicken McNachos.
I remember.
I'm so sorry we didn't run the McDungeon that night. That
I know,
perfect.
right? Oh God, so funny.
Everything comes full circle here.
It does.
It really
It does. Well, anything else that you'd like to share with the people, Nick, about D&D? I mean, we all think it's awesome. Our kids think it's awesome. So
I have another question.
okay.
Because like we are all about like learning and creative technology and all that good stuff here at the DAE, because we teach all of those classes. But like how, like, setting aside fun for a second, even though fun is the biggest part of it, like what are the sort of like, there's got to be like cognitive benefits, like what are like the biggest like takeaways, like growth wise for kids and adults for this kind of thing?
So that's a really good question, Em. And it's really interesting to see what a few health experts have said about it. And if you go onto our website into the archive section, I've created a page where I've linked a bunch of studies into like what the benefits are for D&D. So if you want to go look at that in more detail, like I'll cover it briefly here, but for like details, definitely head over there. But one of the reasons it's great is because for kids who are maybe have trouble connecting with kids at school, or they don't know quite how to socially interact. Me speaking as one of them. It gives people a common place to interact where like the rules for interaction are kind of known a little bit. So it makes them a little bit easier to connect with people who have the same interests. And because it's a game and you can do anything, like they get a little bit more ability to experiment and like kind of grow out of their shell a little bit. So it's really good in a way for them to make friends, interact, learn some social cues, and it's also gives them a place to just relax. Like I know like fun is a big factor of it, but sometimes having an activity where you can just turn your not turn your brain off, but hello phone, to kind of just take a break from the normal day-to-day activity is really beneficial.
Like a de-stress kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And adults need that too. Oh my God, phone. Shush. I'm sorry. I'm muting this. Get out of here.
You know what's interesting is I've been reading about this a little bit, if I may, and recently I've been reading about the benefits of D&D, just as we've been talking about it quite a bit recently, and I was reading that in some settings people use D&D sessions as therapy. To de-stress, to build empathy skills, because you're literally seeing the world through someone else's eyes. I mean, there's a lot involved there beyond just the fact that it's fun and you get to, do cool things. And what's really cool is it aligns with everything that we're all about at the DAE. I mean, we're about, finding people who like the same stuff as you and working together towards a common goal, collaboration and problem solving and all the stuff that have been part of our values for so long. And D&D is right on the money. I mean, it's all that same stuff, and it's obviously people like it because our clubs are super full, and they're all seeing the benefits from it. Especially those that have been involved for the full year. So
Yeah,
it's just interesting to see that.
It kind of reminds me of I'm just drawing like a parallel to oops, and my phone's going off now. Good.
Yeah, phone party.
Next time we'll all turn our phones up. Like when my family gets together, one of the things we do is my mom plans a meal that we all cook together, and then we end up just chatting while we're doing that thing, and it almost kind of feels like D&D can be a platform for people to be themselves over it,
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
one thing I just want to mention to any adults out there who are maybe on the fence or aren't sure if it's right for their kid or for themselves, what I would encourage you to do is just sit down and try it. It looks really intimidating because there's 5-10 books that look like you have to read them all. That's not true. Find a dungeon master who's willing to run a session. Have them answer any questions you have. They'll help you get the sheets together. Usually if you approach someone who's willing to be a dungeon master, they will help you with everything. So don't worry about buying stuff. Don't worry about what the entry level is, what knowledge you got to know. You can pick that up as you go. Just find someone to play with, find a dungeon master, sit down, and don't worry if you make mistakes. I've been dungeon mastering for 5 years. If you're starting out as a dungeon master or a player, I still make mistakes. There's ways to fix it. You can be very creative in the rules, or if you forget to do something, you can give extra gold or points or whatever it is to just make up for that. So I would definitely encourage you to try it. It's an activity that I still engage in and really enjoy, and it helps just make the day a little bit more enjoyable, particularly after you get to get all the gold and run away from the dragon. So all that good stuff.
And anybody that's interested in learning more about D&D, obviously get in touch with us. We can certainly provide some guidance and get you heading in the right direction. And if you're interested in maybe doing something for the holidays D&D related for your kids, check out our holiday gift guide. We have a bunch of really cool D&D related resources and a bunch of other cool resources for good gift ideas for your techie or nerdy kids in the family like all of us. So, definitely check that out. But definitely get in touch if you have questions. I mean, we have some very seasoned D&D players here that can help guide you in the right direction. So,
yeah, so that's info@thedae.com, and then also Nick is just nick@thedae.com. So,
Yep.
Feel free to reach out.
And our main website for the D&D club is dnd.thedae.com. So even if you don't want to sign up right away, you can go over there, check it out. Occasionally, I'll do extra activities that you can participate in, even if you're not a club member. We're always welcoming to anyone who wants to just get a foot in the door and see what it's like. So go check it out, and maybe you'll find something of interest.
Oh, I have one more question.
Ooh, more questions.
More questions. Okay.
Okay, Rob, hang on to yours. Why is it DND? Is that just colloquial?
Yeah, it's just easier to say. So it's just D&D instead of D and D.
So the ampersand doesn't translate on web pages.
There's also that.
The DAE.
Yeah, so it's also just more fun to say.
Yeah.
True.
D&D.
What are you going to say, Rob?
I was going to say, for anybody that's interested in checking out the club, we are going to be running a free session every month going forward from this point on. So if you want to jump in and have a little one-shot mini D&D game to see what it's like, check out D&D. That's with an N, not an ampersand. dnd.thedae.com, and you'll be able to sign up for the free session.
I may have to still get that on the website, but keep an eye out.
Yeah, keep an eye out for it. All right. I'm jumping the gun here, but it's coming.
Okay.
It's coming.
You can always check out hop on our mailing list, all that good stuff.
Oh yeah.
And speaking of which, I did want to mention we have an open house coming up in January, a couple of open houses coming up. Now the dates are escaping me, but they are free, and you could just come talk to us. We answer any questions. You can kind of get the lowdown on classes and clubs and D&D and whatever else is happening. So I'm going to pull those dates up real quick. Anybody else have anything to add?
The only thing I would say is if you have any questions about anything before our open houses, if you go to our website, thedae.com, you can book a 15-minute appointment with me to talk about anything you have questions about, anything and everything. Good free stuff to do at home, other resources for D&D, for coding, for robotics, you name it. Or if you have questions about our classes, I'm happy to talk. Or if you just want to talk, I'm happy to talk to you for 15 minutes about anything you like.
Yeah.
Cool.
We just want social interaction.
I miss you guys.
I know. I miss you guys too. I'm like really glad that we could like kind of hang out and do this.
Oh, yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Let's make it a weekly thing.
Yeah, so we're
Right.
gonna try to do something like this every week where we just kind of delve into one particular subject that, you know, one of us is passionate about and just kind of hang out and let, you know, bridge the gap a little bit between, you know, tech and adults and parents and all this stuff. Just rambling now.
Yeah, well,
See where it
that's what
goes.
this is all about. It's just to get together and share ideas with us, each other, and all of you out there. We just want to hang out and talk about great things.
Exactly.
And we'll get through it
just
together.
to add to that, January 7th, a Thursday, that'll be at 4 p.m. is the open house, and then the 12th is 8 p.m. So give a little bit of variety.
Sweet.
All right, cool.
Well, thanks everybody who tuned in to watch this live, and if you're tuning in not live, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Hope you learned something. Hope you have a lovely weekend. Get out and enjoy the beautiful day, and
Yes.
we'll see you next week around the same time.
Yeah, and reach out to
All
us on Facebook anytime.
And thank
Thanks,
you,
everybody.
Nick, for being so
Oh, yeah,
awesome
absolutely.
at D&D.
Any time to talk about D&D, I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Do it.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.